Well, thanks for making some time again to speak with me today, Femi. I'm so glad Amy mentioned you. It was great speaking to her as well and hearing her story, and she spoke really highly of the work you've done. So, as always, what we try to do when we start these episodes is just get to know you a little better and the career journey you've been on, because it seems to be everyone's kind of favorite part of the series is hearing a little bit about, how you've gotten to where you are today, even though everyone's going to take their own journey. It's always nice to know, what kind of highlights, what kind of stops have you made to get to where you are. And then I'll have some other questions around, careers that I know people are wondering, but maybe we could start there, Femi. How did you get to where you are today?
Okay, thanks, Imran. That's a great question. And I will start with one of the things you said is everyone's journey is different, and that is so true. It's rare today to find someone who has a linear journey and say, I went to school, I did this, and I'm at the top of my career. It's rare. So everyone's journey is different. My journey is very, very convoluted. I actually have a degree in chemistry.
Oh, wow.
I did postgraduate in pharmaceutical chemistry as well. So my background wasn't originally in IT. But I remember one of my very first year of university, my undergraduate days, my one of my instructors, I was in the laboratory at the time, we're doing some work, and he said, your first degree shows that you're trainable. It doesn't write your future. What you do after that training determines where you go to. And it stuck with me all that time that, my first degree means that I can take a concept, understand what it is, and repeat that out to someone who needs to learn what it is. So I started out with that. While I was in my postgraduate program, I saw an ad in the papers, something along the lines of learn Oracle 9.9 for free or something like that.
Okay.
So I applied. I was about to write an exam. I wrote the exam, and I think like 3 weeks later, I got a call saying, "Hey, you were the best in the exam, so you have a full scholarship to study Oracle 9.9." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's nice."
Wow.
So I went in, started learning Oracle 9, and I was like, "Hey, ones and zeros make sense." Computers, fine. I was working with, chemicals and reagents and all of that, and pipettes and burettes, and that was fine. I love that because it's interesting, mixing two different colored liquids and getting a third different color liquid. That's what
Yeah.
chemistry is all about.
Doing
But
some
then I was like,
titration.
computer is so good. So I was like, okay, so I did a bit of database administration. Then I did a bit of web development. This was in the very early days of web development where we're doing, CSS and HTML. There wasn't even HTML5 at the time. You know, Dreamweaver was the king. You knew how to use Dreamweaver. You were the king of making websites at the time. So I was doing a bit of that. I learned
Nice.
a bit of word software programming as well. Until I just worked my way through the curve through that. And then I spent about 7 years working for a small software development firm back in Nigeria.
Okay.
Um, and I was on the product management side actually. So I was in core tech at the time. I was doing a lot of BA work, a lot of technical analysis. I also headed the UAT, so because we had a solution, I would, talk to the clients and say, hey, what are your pain points? What can we improve? And then I would liaise with the development team and say, okay, how can we make this better? These are the things the clients want to see. So I was doing all of that. Then I got the opportunity to move to Canada about 6.5 years ago. So I moved here and I was like, you know what? I want to be on the other side of the program. I want to be actually involved. So I got into cybersecurity as a whole then. So I've been doing a bit of this here and there, but not as involved as I was when I moved to Canada.
Gotcha.
So I moved to Canada, and this is pre-COVID. So what worked at the time might not necessarily work now. But what happened was I moved to Canada, printed up my resume, went downtown Vancouver, and I think I went to about 20 different, employment agencies and said, hey, I'm new to town. This is my resume. That the skills I have. I did the job, And I think within a week, I got one of them call me up and say, hey, we have a client who needs someone. Would you like to take a look at it? And I was like, sure, why not? So I went in there, had an interview. I was given it was a temporary role for 6 weeks.
I see.
But after, I think the first week I got into that role, they had a cyber attack, they had a server issue, and I was just, I just sort of slid into it easily. I was able to show my value. And I think 2 weeks later, my manager said, we're going to advertise this job permanently. If you want it, it's yours. And I was
Wow.
like, of course I do. So that's why I got the role permanently. It was a non-profit. So I had a very fancy title. It was Business Systems and Database Specialist. So I was doing a lot of work with systems and databases and all of that. But I was pretty much it's a non-profit. They're smaller. I was the IT guy.
I
So everything from my printer doesn't work, I can't get onto the internet, I forgot my password, all of that. So I was doing a whole bunch of things. But
well,
at the time I kept on saying I wanted to do a lot more with cybersecurity. So now, bear in mind, like I said, my background was in IT at this time. I had certifications I had done, yes, because I'd been working in IT at the time for about 10 years.
okay.
Well, a little less than 10 years actually. But I didn't have a background degree or diploma or anything in IT. So I was going to go to a school which shall not be named to do a
Okay.
master's program. And they're like, you have three requirements. You have to have industry experience, you have to have an English language requirement, and you have to have an academic degree, in information systems or something similar. So I had industry experience, of course, at this point, about 10 years. I had like a 8.5 in my IELTS band score, so my English was pretty
Wow.
good. But they
Yeah.
were like, "But your degree is in chemistry." And I was like, "Yes, but I've got like five different certifications that are different IT certifications, and I've been working in the industry for a while. It doesn't count." We're like, "Nope, sorry, can't do." And I was like,
Oh.
so I had to go back to a different school, take a diploma program in information systems, just so that I had an academic credential that was
Oh.
IT. So,
Okay.
but I was doing that full time. I was working full time at the same time as well. And I think I did the diploma program in like 5 semesters. So started September 2018. I was done by April 2020. So in shorter time than usual, came out
That's
with distinction, graduate, and this was just as pandemic was starting. But while I was doing that, and this is what I always tell people who ask, when I was doing that diploma program, I didn't say, well, when I was a domestic student, so that was easier for me. I wasn't worried too much about, how am I going to, worry about fees and all that. I was paying domestic fees. But I was telling people, wherever you find yourself, always try and network because yes, you might have an awesome resume. If you don't have the right networking skills, you're going nowhere. So I was volunteering in the International Students Office, even though I was a domestic student. I was volunteering in career services as well. So one day I got into career services and someone was like, hey, there's this scholarship, you should apply. So big company, I applied for the scholarship. 3, 4 months down the line, I got the scholarship. I was invited to a gala downtown where it was presented and they said, hey, would you like the opportunity to get a mentorship, and work with us? I was like, sure, absolutely. I'm good. Okay. And I spoke to someone, she got my number. The next week, someone called me and said, okay, let's talk about it. We see what we can do. Maybe we can give you an opportunity. A few months down the line, they came calling and said, hey, we have a role and we think you'd be a perfect fit. Would you like to work for us? I was
wow.
like, sure. And that's how I got in there. So while I was actively looking. Well, I wasn't actively looking, but I was interested in, growth opportunities. But I was also looking for opportunities where I could actually showcase my skills. Because like I say to people, your resume, yes, if you're not there, your resume will probably speak for you. But what's more important is who is willing to speak for you. So don't
I
say, "Oh, I sent in my resume," which is what most people do today. See a job, send in your resume, send in your, your cover letter if you put one, and expect that miracles are going to happen. It doesn't work quite like that. You need to do a bit more. So I was like, okay, what else can I do? So I was talking to people. I was networking. I was showing my skill set. My manager right now, the manager of the team at the time, I said to him, this is what I can do. I had a few conversations back and forth, and it was like, you actually know your stuff. I think you'll be a good fit on our team. You know, and here
oh,
I am now, a few years later, and that has happened. Now I know COVID has changed things a bit differently, made things a bit different. So it's not as straightforward as it was. That you'd really walk into offices these days and find someone there. There's still a lot of pushback about going back to the office. Many folks are still, let's do a bit more of hybrid or also it's a lot harder. But still, there's things you can do. I say to people, that's why a tool like LinkedIn is very powerful
yeah.
because you're not able to get to people in person all the time, but you can actually showcase what you can do online via platforms like LinkedIn. You can get involved in professional communities. So get involved with, like, for example, I'm in IT, I'm in cybersecurity. I am involved with ISC2, I'm involved with ISACA, which are both professional organizations for information security. Because that way you get to meet people who are in your field, who are in the industry, different career stages, both early stage, mid stage, distinguished careers. And usually what happens is because you're getting involved in that community, they know you, they can vouch for you. And if someone knows that opportunity is coming up, it's easier for them to call you first and say, hey, I know this opportunity is coming up. You should Like someone was talking to me a few weeks ago. I said, hey, I think there's going to be an opening somewhere at the end of May, and I think you'd be a perfect fit. Would you be interested? So that's how it is. But if I wasn't getting involved and
Right.
networking and getting involved, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to say that. I'm not going to sit in my bedroom or in my office and expect that what I want is going to fall into my lap. It doesn't work that way. So yes, everybody has different career paths that brought them to where they are, but you have to actively make an effort to direct it because it doesn't happen by chance. They say I know they say good things come to those who wait, but I also believe that where I come from, there's a saying, what your hand can't reach, you find yourself a hook and pull it closer. So if you're trying to reach out for something and you can't reach it, you don't say and say, oh, well, I can't reach it, so that's the end. You find a hook and pull it closer so that you can grab it with both hands. So that hook you're finding is that what are you doing? How are you networking with people? How are you getting involved in the society? How are you volunteering? How are you communicating? Because all of that makes people see the value you bring. Because I won't give you a job unless I am sure that you're going to be bringing value when you join my team. So show that you have value, and then people can then give you a job. That's the best way to, get your career to take off, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, thanks. That makes so much sense, Femi. And thanks for sharing, the story you've made along the way here, because it sounds like that's what you've done. That you kind of entered the space and just started working hard. And by being in that environment, people recognized and said, a 6-week contract turned into what sounds like a full-time role. Just by you being there and doing the work, or by, joining the careers team and again, making an impact. Um, that to me, it makes so much sense. You're around the people
Yeah.
from the industry, you're demonstrating what you're capable of, and then, when an opportunity comes along, you've kind of created some luck for
Yeah.
yourself, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of the
Exactly.
one, hey, we're about to post this job, but if you want it, it's yours. I think that can happen more often than people think. It's
Oh,
not,
yes.
you know what I mean? So thank you for reminding us that. And I completely agree with what you said about the networking as well. And one thing I heard in a previous episode was that, it's pretty common on a resume to put references that know you, but these are family and friends, not people
Exactly.
from industry.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so you're kind of saying, you need to find people who can vouch for you from industry, right? From your field.
Exactly. Yeah. Because
Okay.
your family might love you so much, but they probably know nothing about the industry you want to work in. So
Right.
they have no use to you at that point. Um, and if someone who is experienced at a role you're trying to get into says, I think this person would do well in this role, I would take that over your brother or your uncle or your aunt, because I would believe that your brother or aunt is emotionally required to give you a good reference, not even if they don't know a lot about what you do. But this person who doesn't know you from anywhere but knows that you can do the job well, they have nothing to gain by giving you a good reference, or a bad reference, right?
Right.
That's what it is. So it's always better. Yes, family and friends are nice. It's good to have a support system, but get those industry connections, because that's if except you're looking to go into a different industry.
Right.
You get that industry's connections. So
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a great reminder because, again, you might think, oh, I'm going to ask family and friends, they'll say something nice, but it doesn't hold the same weight as someone from your industry. And that does take, getting to know people from the industry. So it makes sense what you're saying to put yourself out there. Now, I agree. It's maybe trickier right now for people to do that with how much has become, present online. But
yes. Yeah.
do any opportunities come to mind for you, or do you have any strategies, on how to use LinkedIn to meet people and build some of those relationships?
Yes. So there's a few things I've always recommended. Yes, we've gone all remote, but I don't think we are fully remote. So the first thing I say to people is use LinkedIn very strategically. Don't just be on LinkedIn. So what do I
Right.
mean? There's ways to engage on LinkedIn. I say there's 3 different ways you can engage on LinkedIn. You can go on LinkedIn and all you do is just like people's posts. Oh, I see this post, I like it, click. See that, I like it, click. Yes, you're engaging, you're clicking. But that isn't adding value to anything anyone is saying. You can take that a step further by saying, okay, someone writes something and you think, oh yeah, that makes sense, and you like it, but then you put a comment and say, hey, I see this thing you wrote and I understand it and I agree with it because of XYZ. That's better than just liking the post. That shows that you are able to internalize that person's post and make some sense out of it. But you can even take that a step further, and that's what LinkedIn does. It says you can repost with your own thoughts. That's another option. You can not just repost to your followers, and then you can then go ahead and say something like, this person posted this, and I completely agree with that because of this and this and this, and then say, in my experience, I've also done this and this and this that has given me this result, and completely align with what this person has said. So you're doing a couple of things by doing that thought approach where you're reposting with your thoughts. One, you're also showing that you understand what's happening in that industry because you're not just liking what somebody says, but you're giving us your own perspective of things. You're giving us your own experiences. So somebody won't say, how do I know you can do that? You've already told me, well, in my previous experience, I did this, and got this result, like this person said. So you're showing us, you're validating that thing that person is saying actually works because this is a second person, different experience, but same result or same outcomes, if you will.
Right.
You're also showing yourself as a thought leader in that space, And then, of course, people who would read that comment or read those posts or whatever it is will say, okay, yeah, that's true. This person talked about, AI, for example, but also you also talked about AI because you have some experience there. And that might make them follow you. And then once they start to follow you, they can start to see what you do. So that's one thing you can do to start showcasing your expertise on LinkedIn. So that's the first part. Showcase your skills. Don't just be on LinkedIn and say, I have this person. I'm on LinkedIn. I have an account. I have 200,000 followers, but I don't post anything at all. That's useless. So that's the first part. Second part is grow your connections because it's okay it's not also okay to be on LinkedIn. You also want to be on LinkedIn and have connections. Grow your connections. Who are you
Right.
connecting? Who are those who are you following? Who are you connected to? I always recommend if you are connected to someone for the first time who you did not meet at an event, because you could go to an event, which is one of the things I love about industry events. You go out to an event, and right there and then you pull up your phone, open up the QR code, scan, boom, you're connected on LinkedIn. So much easier. If somebody you've been at an event and you've spoken, just add them on LinkedIn. It's completely fine. You've had a conversation one-on-one already in person. But if you haven't met the person along, so for example, I am trying to get into, say, cybersecurity in the GRC space. And I do a search on LinkedIn because LinkedIn allows you to filter your search in so many ways and search for people who are in certain industry. So I can do that search, find somebody who works in, governance and risk and compliance, say a few of them, and I can say to somebody, I can add them as a friend. But if you've never met them before, don't just randomly add a person as a connection, because why should they add you to their network? It's just like walking up to somebody in the street and saying, "Yeah, my friend." Why? You wouldn't do that, right? So why would you do that on
Like a way
LinkedIn?
to put it, yeah.
Instead, add some context. Say something along the lines of, you know, I see your profile. You're doing exactly what I love to do, and I appreciate what you're doing. I would like to connect so that I can actually learn from your experiences, see what you're doing, and maybe at some point in the future, pick your brain about how to succeed in this industry. You don't ask them for a job, because I've seen people send a connection and say, I am looking for a job. Why would I give you a job even if I don't know you from anywhere? But you're telling this person that you see what they're doing. So one, you're showing them that you appreciate what they're doing. Everybody likes to be told that they're doing a good job. You're also telling them that you want to learn from their experiences. Everybody likes to share their experiences to help people improve. Everybody loves to do that. So you've done that as well. And you're telling them that you're going to keep on following them to see what they're going to be doing in future. That lets them know that they have a ready audience when they continue to do even better things, which makes them also want to do better things. So you've done three things by doing that in your connection note. So one, yeah, engaging by putting good content out there on LinkedIn. You're connecting with people by doing the right things when you connect with people. That way you grow your connections. And then if you have a coffee chat, if you're able to get them to spend some time with you and say, hey, do you have 15 minutes next week, have a few questions about the industry I would like to ask you about, asking things like, what's the biggest challenge he's seen in the industry? What are the current trends? How did he get to where he is? 3, 4, 5 times of conversations, and not just ask them and listen, take notes, and then, like I said, give them back what they've said, say a bit of your experiences as well. You end up building a rapport such that, like I
Right.
said again, in 5 months' time or 3 months' time, and person hears that there's an opening somewhere, someone is looking for somebody who can do this job. He remembers, oh, I've been having a conversation with someone for the last 6 months who I think will be great for this. I will send the recommendation of this person to that person who's hiring, even without you asking. Yes, will that happen all the time? No, it probably happens less than 30% of the time. But realistically, to get yourself where you want to be, all you need is one chance to be successful. You could be unsuccessful 99 times, but you get one chance that you're successful, and that chance literally changes your life. So why would you not? You don't like I think it's Wayne Gretzky that said you
Yeah.
miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you
So
take it and you miss, that's fine. But if you don't take it, you've missed already anyway. So just take it. You never know what's going to happen. It might be that one lucky break you need. So
it's
that's
super.
my suggestion. That's my recommendation. And I've done that all the time, and it works for me.
I agree. It works for me as well, Femi. And it's I think it's what you're saying. It's being deliberate about it. It's not just being there. It's finding that hook, like you said, it's finding the people that you are genuinely interested in talking to. And if you are and they post something, why wouldn't you add to that conversation and join, the community around those people who are sharing thoughts on AI or sharing thoughts on marketing or healthcare and say, how you said, repost it with your thoughts. That person is going to appreciate that, you've taken the time to view what they did,
Mhm.
support it, promote it. And yeah, that's, where relationships start and friendships form. And it's so true. You wouldn't just walk up to someone in the street and say, we're friends now. Do you want to be friends?
Yeah,
Maybe that works once or twice, but to make kind of long-term, beneficial kind of relationships that are both, it's useful to both people. You can't just message someone and ask for a job.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you're giving us a really practical way to go about connecting with people virtually, but still build really strong relationships. And the same goes for your strategy on sending the connection request with some details,
yeah,
not
yeah.
just asking for something that they really don't have, any context to help you with. So, thanks for sharing those suggestions around that. I know I don't have a ton left of your time here, so one thing I'd be curious about from your perspective, just because you're kind of in the world of IT and cybersecurity and have that background, is um, are you seeing trends uh, in the industry for specific jobs that are becoming popular, specific skill sets that are in demand, um, anything on the horizon in terms of the workforce that we can let job seekers know about so that if they're thinking about changing careers or interested in making a bit of a switch and say, hey, these kind of jobs or these kind of skills are being looked for right now. Has anything like that come to mind for you?
Quite a few things actually. In my industry, and I think this is probably true in a lot of industries, but more so in some than others. I think it's very true in IT, particularly in cybersecurity, is you have to constantly learn. If you're not, if you want to, if there's one thing you're going to dedicate yourself to doing, it's dedicate yourself to constantly learning. Good example. 5 years ago, nobody knew anything about ChatGPT or generative AI or fine, we had AI actually as one industry. We've had AI, but it wasn't as pronounced as this. And then today now it's everywhere. 5 years ago, you would get an email in your inbox telling you, with bad grammar, telling you that someone has won ₦1 million somewhere or whatever it is. And you immediately know it's scam that because it's writing English terribly because they can't speak it. Today, the scammers can write perfectly flawless grammar in an
Right.
email. That would fool you. They can write code using tools like that. So if you're not able to learn to improve, okay, the threat actors are getting better. I have to get better. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. So that's the biggest thing. Always be open to learning new things when it's available because you never know where the people on the other side of the fence are going to be coming from. So that's the first thing. Um, the second thing would be just like that, also be very flexible. It's sometimes I say to people, I've had people say to me, oh, I want to get into cybersecurity and I want to do GRC. I want to get into cybersecurity. I want to do audit. And I say to people, how do you know that that is what's best for you? Well, like my friend does that, I do that. You really don't know. Your friend might have different aptitudes, different skill sets that make it great for him. I always say to people, spend a year or two doing something that's very generic. So generic role. So for example, if you're going to get into cybersecurity, I say to people, there's actually no entry-level cybersecurity role. Entry-level cybersecurity role requires you to have some experience, either as a generalist IT person or tech support or help desk, say to them, get a role that allows you to do that. What that does for you is allows you to understand how the big cogs in the giant engine of an IT company work. How does hardware work with software, work with support, work with networking, work with security, work with infrastructure, work with cloud storage, all of that. Because then it lets you start to decide, oh, I love what this person is doing here, but I'm not so sure about that because I'm not too keen on that. I don't want to be carrying, routers up and down every day. Oh, I enjoy looking at people's, setting up accounts for people. I like identity and access management. So by the time you spend a couple of years doing that, then you're able to say, okay, I know where my biggest strengths are, and I will actually focus on that. And then, of course, as a generalist, also, you have the bigger advantage if you're in a bigger company most times to be able to shadow somebody who's already in an existing role. So you can say, hey, you're doing network security and firewalls and all of that. Can I shadow you for a week? See what you do. What does your job involve? Do
Yeah.
that. You could also, like I said, another good way of getting some of this information is, find out what's out there. Listen to podcasts. This is a good example, the New Career Podcast. I also have my own podcast as well. But
Oh,
mine is very cybersecurity focused, but just find what works for you, what gives you information about that field you want to go into, because you have to stay abreast to stay relevant. And the moment you're not relevant or you're not abreast, you become irrelevant and then you're going to fall by the wayside. So always be on your toes because you never know when something new is going to actually come, and just like generative AI, make you wonder if you're going to have a job in 5 years' time.
yeah. Well, no, it's a great point, Femi. And the other thing that's exciting about continuously learning is you might discover something new you're interested in, which is what
Exactly.
kind of comes to mind when you say, spend that time in the general role. Um, it reminds me of when I went to university, I wanted to be an engineer. And I didn't know that there were different, to be fully honest, I didn't recognize at 17 that there was civil engineering and chemical engineering and geographical engineering and all these
Yeah.
different disciplines. And so it took me that first year of university to decide, okay, now that I know about all these options, this is what's right for me next. And it wasn't chemistry for me. Chemistry was the I was good at titration, but other than that,
That
I
was it. I know, I
so
can imagine.
well, it goes back to what you're saying that spending the time kind of in that setting will expose you to these options you have. So it's a really, really helpful tip.
Yeah.
Um, and I know we got to let you go here. So I just wanted to ask you before you leave, for folks who are watching this and are interested in cybersecurity, what's the name of your podcast? And we can link to it to make sure that anyone curious who does want to learn more can check that out as well.
Okay, it's called The Cybersec Migrant. It's available on all major and minor podcast platforms. And I'm actually starting a series next month. It's going to be called the very uninspiring name, Day in the Life of. So what it is, I'm going to have different experts in different areas of cybersecurity come and talk about what does their job as, say, I am a SOC analyst. What does a SOC analyst do? Or I am a risk manager. What does a risk manager do? Or I am a blockchain security person. What does that person do? Because it's easy to get into Hollywood and be so enamored with all the fun stuff we see on TV, but cybersecurity isn't anywhere near what Hollywood portrays. That's just the truth. So, but by the time you get these people coming and say, this is what I do on a daily basis, you actually get a sense of, I think I like what that person does, or really, this is what that does. I'm not interested anymore, but it gives some more insight. So I'm planning that series. I'm just sort of getting all my guests together. That should launch next month.
Awesome.
Then it's going to continue throughout the rest of the year as well. So should be exciting. Watch out for that.
Okay, absolutely. That sounds really interesting. I'll check that one out too. I think that's such a cool way to learn about what people do. And hey, maybe those are people, for those of you watching this episode, um, check out the podcast. You might discover someone that you want to reach out to on LinkedIn and say, hey, I watched your podcast. Sounds like you're doing something interesting. And it could be, yeah, like Femi said, the start of a whole new chapter for you. So thank you so much for your time today, Femi, for sharing your stories and insights. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Imran. Much appreciated. Maybe we'll get some other time to have some further conversations. Like you said, we didn't have a lot of time today, but there's always the future, right? We can always come back
Oh,
and revisit it. Yeah.
absolutely. We'd love to have you back on. So if you're available in the future, I will definitely ask for some time to continue the
Open
conversation.
door.
Awesome.
Open door policy.
Right on. thanks again, Femi. Really
Yeah,
appreciate your time and hope you have a great rest of your day.
you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.